Alrighty everyone, hello. And now today I want to talk to you a bit about the health benefits of a specific kind of food, namely fermented foods, like pickles. So later on I will show you how to make real pickles, not like vinegar or fridge pickles, real pickles. But in the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about how these things work and what makes them so good, both physically and also magically. So first you're going to notice that I said real pickles, not vinegar/fridge pickles. And that's because actually, as I fell down the rabbit hole of learning about pickles today, what I figured out was that these pickles that rely on specifically vinegar actually aren't nearly as nutritious as properly brined pickles. So for example, the kind of pickles you buy from the store that have like a lot of vinegar in them, that are mostly vinegar, these actually don't really have as many health benefits as we would think. They still have the vitamins, right, from the actual pickles themselves, the cucumbers and such, but if they're not using a type of vinegar that has like the mother in it, like with apple cider vinegar, it's really just changing the flavor of the cucumber. It's not really doing much to enhance any of the otherwise traditional health benefits associated with fermented foods. If I hold up some apple cider vinegar to you, you can see that there's all this cloudy stuff at the bottom, and just like with kombucha, which is a really good fermented drink, apple cider vinegar has this mother in it, which is what's fermenting this apple juice into vinegar to begin with. And so this is actually the very leftovers of some fridge pickles I made, in which there's quite a bit of that mother in here now, but there's still a couple pickles left. These can stay for like a good couple weeks, just regular fridge pickles. But again, it's really just the vinegar at that point that's giving you the health benefits, of which there are many of apple cider vinegar, right? This mother, especially this unfiltered one, that does count as a bit of a probiotic. But yeah, these still tasted great. These were delicious on sandwiches. These were so good. And this pickling brine, you could also, use that as like a salad dressing, right? Like, if you're used to putting like balsamic vinegar on a salad, you might instead use some of this kind of brine that's had all this flavor sitting in it too, and it'll be really good. So in that jar of pickles is not a single drop of vinegar. The only thing in there is water, salt, and sugar. And that's because traditionally fermented pickles, well, there's a reason they stay shelf stable for so long, right? And that's because they are actually fermented the same way that, say, sourdough is, and that's through lactic acid. And so obviously there are tons of foods that are traditionally fermented that people enjoy all the time, and those are things like kimchi, right? Like yogurt, or like sourdough bread. These things are actually fermented via good bacteria that eats up the sugars in something and then spits out carbon dioxide, alcohols, and that more sour lactic acid. That's what makes things like sourdough taste so sour. And the health benefits of that are honestly pretty cool, right? Namely, the most significant one being that it is considered a probiotic. So as you know, when you digest food, it's not just acid melting everything in your stomach down into soup. There are certain gut bacteria that also help you break down certain foods. And people who don't have a very healthy gut biome, they tend to have a lot of gastrointestinal issues. They have a really hard time digesting stuff. But people who have a good gut health, microbiome going on in there, they tend to have a lot easier time digesting food and also getting nutrients from that food, thanks to all of those little bacteria hanging out in their gut. So when you eat something like yogurt, like, say, sourdough bread, like properly fermented pickles and kimchi and other things like that, that lactic acid, that good bacteria that's causing that fermentation, they actually help you get a more healthy gut biome overall too. Now the thing is, with vegetables, there aren't as many of a certain type of peptide in there that other sources can have. So when it comes to other health benefits, like those, like these peptides, these small amino acid chains that are really good for us. Okay, so they're called bioactive peptides, and they're, according to the NIH, generally a group of peptides, in most cases consisting of fewer than 50 residues that have a function in a living organism or cell. Although some of these peptides are found in a bare format, many of them are hidden in the intact structure of protein molecules. So these peptides actually that you can get from plants and from all these other sources, yeah, again, they show up in pickled foods, and they're really good for you, and they're also like antimicrobial, antibacterial, like antioxidants even. They have antioxidants in them. They have a lot of really good stuff in it that's not only good for, like, obviously the plant itself. This is how plants survive any kinds of infections through these peptides, but also when you eat them, they help you as well. They help, you know, with your own immune system. They help build up your own, like, neurological function, cognitive function, and all these other really nice things. Those can be found actually more in things like cured meats, eggs, dairy, right, like milk and cheese and yogurt and stuff, and also specifically in wheat, since wheat has like a full spread of amino acids, unlike other plant sources. This one is also really good for health benefits. That's why sourdough bread made with wheat is also really, really good. But when it comes to vegetables, that health benefit isn't so much there. But when you properly ferment it through a brine instead of vinegar, it still does get quite a bit of that probiotic benefit, as well as still, you know, leach out a lot of the other things that are in there for flavor, right? So we put a lot of other things in there too, like peppercorns, bay leaves, garlic, all these other stuff that leach into the actual pickling brine and therefore into the pickles themselves. So yeah, probiotic gets you some peptides, vitamins from just actually eating some vegetables, makes the vegetables softer and easier to digest, keeps things for a long time, preserves fruits and vegetables, especially in the summer as we come into harvest. Canning and fermenting and pickling is a great way to preserve all of these things. Pickled and fermented foods are fantastic for you health-wise. But here's another thing about pickled foods, especially specifically pickles as in a cucumber. They're great for long-term spells and alchemical magic. So this is a fun fact. The other day when I went to church, there were a few baptisms going on, and the priest said that actually the word for baptism in Greek can also mean like to pickle, like to ferment. And the way he described it was really interesting. He goes, yeah, you know, think about pickling. It takes something that's hard and bland and flavorless and makes it soft and kind of spicy. Saying that, you know, the soul kind of goes through that with baptism too. To baptize is to pickle. The soul goes from being hard and bland and blank and flavorless to being pickled in the light of Christ, right? But then the soul itself becomes more softer. It matures with age, right? And all that other kinds of things. It becomes more well-rounded, more preserved, I guess, really, is the metaphor we're working with here. But likewise, when we pickle a vegetable, that takes time. These pickles are going to sit here on my table for the next 3 to 5 days, and hopefully they will begin to get that nice sour taste that comes with lactic acid. But if we think about the cucumber itself, the cucumber is already associated with the moon and the element of water, and it has to do with healing and prosperity and, you know, love and emotion and all these other things. If I pull out my trusty handy-dandy encyclopedia of magical herbs here, for instance, chastity, healing, and fertility is what it says cucumbers are good for. Fruit of the cucumber, when eaten, hinders lust. The peel bound on the forehead relieves headache pain, while the seeds are eaten to promote fertility. Okay, right? So there you go. Say you had a spell you wanted to do, and you wanted to time it by the full moon. Well, if it takes 3 to 5 days for these to ferment at room temperature on that there counter, and you wanted to make a full moon pickle, absolutely, you can sit here and represent whatever it is that your starting problem is. You can represent that in the raw cucumber. And as you let it sit on that counter as the moon grows, you can then infuse your intentions alongside the other herbs and spices you put into it. So if the cucumber represents your raw problem, say maybe the cucumber, or whatever it is that you're pickling even, but the cucumber represents issues with fertility, or even issues with prosperity, right? Because fertility can apply to dreams and abundance as well. Whatever problem you're having, you can symbolize that problem breaking down, softening, and transforming with the growth of the moon as it ferments in that acid. And of course, add things to it like mustard seed for faith and, you know, power and growth. Add things to it like bay leaves for granting wishes and prosperity, or peppercorns for spice and pizzazz, garlic and onion for banishment of any things that would try to hinder you. and for money, for luck, for power and prosperity. The dill, again, for communication, luck, opportunity. You put all these things in one jar, you ferment it, you line it up with the full moon, and then on that full moon day, you let them steep in the full moon light. Now, not only do you have a pretty delicious superfood that is fermented vegetable, well-preserved vegetable, but you also have one that is fully charged with intention, that has grown in power every single day as all of the, things you put in it, the salt, the sugar, the water, all these spices, how you've stirred your intentions into them, all of that has also leached away all of these problems that you wanted to get rid of, and instead has left it a perfect conduit to be blessed under the moon, to be transformed from something, again, kinda blah, kinda ick, kinda whatever, into something really, really good, and something really, really powerful. Something that, with the right touch, and the right care, and the right attendance and assistance, can absolutely represent the things that you want to be transformed. Likewise, with the guidance of you and your respective deities, spirit guides, whatever, transforming it into something else, something more flavorful, something more healthy, something better for you than what you started with. And that's where I think pickled and fermented foods can be really, really, really interesting for magic and for thinking about magic. And this doesn't have to just be pickles either. You can do this with sourdough bread, much the same way, right? That kind of sourdough starter is literally like a seed, kind of a symbol of your own power transforming something. You can also use this with yogurt, right? Yogurt and dairy itself, once again, being very water and moon. You can make your own yogurt by using a little dollop of a cup of yogurt you already had, so on and so forth. Fermented foods are really good for you, really great to include in everyday recipes, right? Like, do all kinds of breakfast things with yogurt. You can, I use Greek yogurt to replace sour cream a lot of times in recipes and such. You can do a lot with that. Of course, pickles are great as a side or as a topping of any sandwich, so on and so forth. And you can also make some really delicious, snacks to have later in the winter when the fresh produce is dying down. And you can do it all with a touch of magic. So, I hope this is a helpful overview of some of the interesting health benefits of pickled foods. And next time I will show you how to make those pickles that I had in that jar. See ya!